Jan Scruggs is the reason there is a Vietnam Veterans Memorial today. It was his idea. He followed the project through to the end. Here's more of our interview with him. You go back every week. Is it because it's a catharsis for you? I mean,
it's still a catharsis for me, and it hasn't really sunk in, I guess, the accomplishment of the whole thing. But for me, it's just a little bit like a magnet. It's something I have to see a lot.
If you could capsule what it means to the men who fought there, who may have held a dying brother in their arms, who may have, you know, felt, who may have sacrificed a leg or an eye, what would they say? What would be the sort of summary emotion?
I suppose the summary emotion would be just kind of a feeling of, as if one were to say, you know, at last, there's finally been some justice.
Justice and recognition?
And recognition, yes.
The idea for all the names, that was your idea?
Yes, that came out of my background in psychology. That's right.
What do you mean?
I had a theory based upon the...
Because that's what everybody remembers, obviously.
Yeah. Just really based upon the writings of Carl Jung, the old Austrian psychologist, and another fellow, Robert J. Lifton at Yale University.
Sure, who wrote about Vietnam veterans for years.
That's correct. I just kind of took the theoretical bases of both of those men. Jung, who was very concerned with symbols, and put it together in my own theory that a memorial that was composed of names would have an impact that would be very positive, and that's the way it worked out.
Anything about, there was some opposition to it. Where did the opposition come from?
There was a great deal of opposition to
design.
To the design of the memorial, and I talk about that in my book, To Heal a Nation.
Right, which I have here.
The opposition really came from veterans themselves who felt that the statement was inappropriate, that a memorial that tended to focus on mourning the dead rather than perhaps flags waving and that,
sure,
that type of thing was inappropriate. There was also some difficulties we had with some congressmen, Henry Hyde, and with Interior Secretary James Watt, and with a number of people and factions and organizations, because all of a sudden they began viewing the memorial as an anti-war statement, and they became very imaginative in ways to oppose it.
Mm-hmm. Is it mourning that it's about? It's more about recognition, isn't it, than mourning?
I think it's about recognition. I think it's about honor. And I think it may be...
And service.
And certainly about service. Service to your country. I mean, all you need to do, if you want a heroic statement, is just pick a name on the memorial at random and look at it. What could be more heroic than a young man giving his life for his country? I mean, that's a very heroic statement. So that's kind of what it's all about. Some people have looked at it and said that it makes a very profound statement about war itself, insofar as many people look at war almost as a playing field for heroes, you know, the old John Wayne movie and so forth. But what you never saw in the old John Wayne movies was really an accurate reflection of the human cost of war. And the human cost of war is shown very graphically and very vividly on the walls of that memorial.
That is, in fact, fathers and sons and brothers and sisters and people who fight wars, and they're young people in the prime of their life. Jan Scruggs, what a wonderful tribute it is to you that it stands there. Thank you for joining us on Night Watch. We will continue. Stay with us.
A question heard often in recent weeks has been about the lessons we learned from Vietnam. Now, Charlie Rose talks with film critics about how Hollywood views the war experience.
Hey, listen. It's up to us now. It's me and you. What about Steven? Forget him. Forget him? Forget him. He ain't gonna make it. Who do you think you are, God?
War provides all the elements for a good movie. The Vietnam War is no exception. Films like The Deer Hunter tried to capture the intense feelings of fighting in a foreign country. It won Picture of the Year in 1979. But making movies about Vietnam was no easy task. On the 10th anniversary of the end of the war, we're going to talk with two well-known film critics about Vietnam movies. Joining us now from Los Angeles are Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times and Jack Mathews of USA Today. I guess if you look at war, it has always been a good staple for Hollywood. But someone once said that the motion picture industry did not go to war with the American soldiers in Vietnam. Why do you think that was, Charles Champlin?
Because I think at that time there wasn't a national consensus about the war, and movies are a consensus marketplace commodity, and I think Hollywood was just very timid about tackling what was already an unpopular war. I think they couldn't find a line through it. There were a couple of exceptions to that, but not very many. I think they were just wanted to avoid it until the consensus became clear, and then afterwards they came back in with a lot of Vietnam movies, or a few anyway, not a lot. So.
I'd say they had no choice. They, beyond the fact it was an unpopular war, the studios, to finance a war like that, I mean, a war movie, we have to go to a lot of people to explain it, where they're going to explain to their stockholders and so forth where they want the money to make a movie that is basically unpopular and certainly against that company's image, I would assume.
What do you think broke the logjam for the Hollywood community? Was it Coming Home?
You mean it started the cycle?
Yes.
Well, I think those were all in production at the same time, so I don't think you can pin it to one film. There were about 6 movies that were in production at the same time in 1978. So, I mean, Coming Home is the one that I think made it commercial.
All right, let's take a look.
I think also established maybe a tone for it, too.
Yeah, Coming Home established a tone. Let's take a look at an excerpt from Coming Home and be right back to you, Charles Champlin.
It's not our fault. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm naive.
Naive? She wants to know if she's naive. Oh, man, that's cold.
I'm a cold man.
I mean, it's like you've done your duty, you served your purpose, and so they're just, you know, toss you into the heap like you.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is. You know, that's what it is.
Well, what is our function if it isn't to deal with the kind of problems that you guys face every day? God, the smugness just, I can't believe it.
Give him a hand.
Sorry.
It's not going to do any good, but
Well, I don't know
I'm
when you say
rooting
that.
for you, Bender.
Well, thanks a lot, Lou. No, but seriously, if they put something in the paper about it,
Bender, you're beautiful when you're excited.
Message there was, Charles Champlin?
Well, I think picking up on subsequent attitudes, the feeling of abandonment on the part of the GIs who had fought, the very brave men who'd fought in Vietnam, the feeling of disillusion and waste on the part of the people who had gone over there, like the Bruce Dern character, very strongly believing in the war, a sense of compassion that was maybe not sufficient given the society as a whole. I think all of those elements have surfaced in all of our following thought about the war. Don't you, Jack?
Oh, yeah, very much. Also, at that point, they were still trying to find that one thing you could put a purpose to. You know, 1968, when John Wayne made Green Berets, it was like the movies he made during World War II. It was to rally the public support for a war effort, and he didn't see any difference between Vietnam and Germany or Japan.
It's interesting, the two films most often cited are those two you've just mentioned, Coming Home and Green Beret, for different reasons. Green Beret because it was traditional.
Yeah, the Green Beret is the one film that was absolutely pro-involvement and very, very, very patriotic at the time. A difficult film, difficult in production, I think.
It was the most, I think, the Green Berets was the only overtly political film about Vietnam. I mean, its purpose was to change public opinion. It just used a lot of erroneous facts and so forth. It just used a lot of the cliches from previous war movies to the racism and those gooks and how they were brutal and we were wonderful. And if there was a metaphor all the way through that thing using David Jansen, who was a news reporter who represented the protest movement in the United States. And the whole idea was that if you could just see it, if the protesters could just see this war, they'd know we were right in being there. And the David Jansen character goes through a great change in this thing and becomes a hawk himself.
When we come back, let's move to 1979, Deer Hunter, which won, I guess, the award for Best Picture, and what that film said and what are the messages coming out of that. We'll do that as we continue talking about movies and the Vietnam War as we look at the 10th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. Stay with us.
Now we got ourselves a game. You and me. You and me. Now we got ourselves a real game.
Cái chân nó. Cầm xuống mau.
Jack Mathews, the message of Deer Hunter and its place in this sort of evolution of Vietnam films.
Well, I think Deer Hunter was, all of the Vietnam films have been symbolic. I mean, none of the films have really been able to take the war head on and be specific about it. But I think the Deer Hunter symbolized the madness of war for the individual, what it was doing to the individual. Where Apocalypse Now, as an example, or as a contrast, symbolized the madness of war in general. In both cases, they didn't deal directly with the Vietnam War, even the metaphor with the Russian roulette. And
before we go too far, let's look to the World War II, for example. What film about World War II has not been made about Vietnam? Do you understand? Is there a classic World War II film that says that ought to be done, in a sense, about the Vietnam War?
I don't think you could say there's a specific World War II movie. I think all of them had, those films that were made during and right after World War II were all about trying to show us our troops at war in another place. You know, we saw that with, as you said earlier, television showed us the Vietnam War, and that's one thing that none of these movies could even try to do with Vietnam. I mean, the images that we saw on television screens are far worse than any scenes any film director could ever conceive.
Picking up on the movies, let me come to one more film clip that we have, which is Uncommon Valor, which is a whole nother stage in the evolution of films that have come out. Here is Uncommon Valor, starring Gene Hackman.
Remember, that's your cue to blow up the radio tower. Then you blow up the bridge to cut off the reinforcements from the village.
Boom.
Mr. Scott, that'll be your cue to neutralize guard tower A. All right, Charge, Johnson, you pick up Blaster after we've snatched the prisoners. Major Johnson, you pick up Scott. Okay, Blaster, this is the big ride.
All right, stay there.
Men, it's imperative that we're in and out in less than 3 minutes. Our lives and the lives of the prisoners may depend on it.
Now, what we have there is obviously a practice exercise in that film, but some would say that Uncommon Valor, which shows a man going back to get his son who was missing in action, is part of the grappling with the Vietnam War, a little bit of revision in a sense that it helps Americans realize that there were brave people and people that suffered in that war. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's no question that there is a lingering frustration about the Vietnam War and a lingering guilt now, I think, in the population at large, that we have neglected those people and that there were an awful lot of loose ends left when we pulled out of there. And I think that is maybe revisionist is the word, but it's certainly a kind of maybe a willingness to go back and look at it again and try to maybe set the record straight.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say that I think also that's, I said earlier that these films had no purpose. Well, these films do have a purpose. Now, Missing in Action and Uncommon Valor and Rambo that's coming out, these films all give a purpose. The purpose is to go out and free our men. Now, it's just the roles have been reversed in a sense. We're Charlie this time because we're the guys sneaking through the jungle and setting traps and going after them. So there's clearly a purpose. And they may be very jingoistic in their essence, but it's just a good action-adventure film.
The purpose, it one more time, though. The purpose of these films is, in a sense, to glorify the sacrifice and the courage of the American fighting man and woman in Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever going to be crazy enough to try to make a Vietnam War movie that shows us winning the war, even though that's, in a sense, what Uncommon Valor does. But it has to do that through the courage of the men, the fact that there was a sacrifice. I mean, the Vietnam veterans were ignored for so many years, and that's caused that one rash of films in '78. All of those films had that in common, that there are victims out there, and it's not their fault.
Is there some sense, though, that Vietnam films now, regardless of the tack that they take, are bankable, are Hollywood moneymakers?
I don't think they're bankable.
No, I don't think so either, Jack, or Charlie. I think it's still a tough sell. I'm very curious, we don't know yet, but all of the media attention that's now being given to Vietnam on the 10th anniversary, I'm just really curious to see what the public reaction is going to be. I mean, it has become a media event, and I think it's extremely valuable, and I'm all in favor of it, but I will wait to see what the public response is to all the refocus on it. I think it's interesting that the two most powerful films out of Vietnam were certainly The Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now. And I think particularly with The Deer Hunter, except to convey that nightmare experience which Jack told about, I think it's very unclear what The Deer Hunter was saying. A writer in the New Statesman in London said it was an insult to the memory of every American who died in Vietnam, The Deer Hunter. I think that at least at the end, Cimino was saying that no, he was admiring those people and it was a very patriotic film. I think it's, maybe that's Cimino talking, but I think there's a great ambivalence throughout The Deer Hunter. And Apocalypse Now, I think, was simply, as The Deer Hunter did also, did even more deeply, which was just go into the nightmare aspects, the curious phenomenon of the Vietnam War taking place in a world otherwise not only at peace but fairly hedonistic. So he's got these hedonistic escape elements within the war itself. It's really bizarre in nature.
Let me just stay with the idea, though, that we approach. One is that the great movie has not been made about Vietnam. What ought to be the theme of that movie? I mean, what is the subject matter that they are frightened to take on?
Well, I don't think there is that movie you're looking for. I mean, I really don't know what that movie would be. It seems to me that you're talking about the whole history of the Vietnam War as televised. I keep going back to that. The horror of the war makes its way into films piece by piece. And if you're going to deal with the Vietnam War in specifics, then you have to deal with it as its politics. And its politics were unpopular, and it's an unsympathetic subject. And even now, I mean, time heals some wounds, but in this case, the guilt is just as strong as ever.
Yeah, Charlie, if I may say so, I think that that's the point, that the Vietnam War is a political story in which very brave men were put at risk and died. But I think it's impossible to do a Vietnam film which is not really essentially about politics. I think that's the tough part, and it's very hard to do. I don't know how you do it. We envy World War II for its clarity. I mean, Battleground and G.I. Joe and all those marvelous films rested on a bedrock of agreement that war had to be fought.
Black and white, and white hats and dark hats.
In every sense,
and
black
bad
and
guys
white.
in every way. Yeah. The Nazis made awfully good enemies, didn't they?
Yeah, they still do, don't they?
And Charlie,
in print and TV and films.
Yeah.
The Viet Cong does too, and these films are extreme. I've been asked, are these films racist? Well, of course, all war movies are racist in a sense. I mean, you go back and look at the films made during World War II and how the Japanese and the Jerrys and all were treated. These films, the ones that are coming out, Rambo and Missing in Action, these are real hard action adventure films. There are very little politics really involved. And there's just, if the movie's successful, it's because of Sylvester Stallone, I think, not the war.
And it seems to me that if you look at a more recent film, that really is about Vietnam in a certain way, and that's The Killing Fields. It seems to me it's about Southeast Asia, and there again is a film that has something to say to the left and the right and the center. I mean,
and in the end, it's a human story of all of the human compassions that are really what make war. In the end, war, I think, is dramatic because it is life and death, and it is human beings against the elements and risking their life. I thank both of you, Jack.
We are all victims. I think that's the message.
Charles Champlin, LA Times and the USA Today. This is Nightwatch, and we'll continue. Stay with us.
Because there's not enough reason, man. Feel a person die in your hands, or to see your best buddy get blown away.
What are you doing here, Bender? Why aren't you out on the golf course teeing up balls? Doing something you're good at.
I'm just trying to keep busy, that's all.
Sure, it gives you something to talk about over martinis. How you're helping out the poor cripples.
I don't think that I deserve that, Luke, at all.
Maybe you're just getting ready for your husband who'll come back in a body bag.
Coming Home was one of the first movies to deal with the way Vietnam affected people's lives. Veterans of the war gave it high mark for portraying their problems favorably. It tells how a wounded soldier overcomes his handicap. As we mark the 10th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, we're going to look at how Hollywood handled the war. Hal Ashby was the director of Coming Home, and he joins us from Los Angeles. Welcome to Nightwatch, Mr. Ashby.
Thank you, Charlie.
When you look back at Coming Home, how do you see it today?
Well, gosh, it's going back, you know, quite a while since I made the film. It's a film I still wish had been made during the Vietnam War. I've always thought that, and unfortunately, I don't think we would have gotten the finance to make it during the war, and so you know, we were stuck doing it a little bit afterwards. But it's a film that I feel very, you know, very close to, and feel very, you know, have a lot of deep feelings about.
I want to have our audience at home take a look at a clip from Coming Home. John Voight and Jane Fonda. Here is some of them.
And now I'm here to tell you that I have killed for my country or whatever. And I don't feel good about it. Because there's not enough reason, man. To feel a person die in your hands or to see your best buddy get blown away. I'm here to tell you, it's a lousy thing, man. I don't see any reason for it. And there's a lot of I did over there that I find hard to live with. And I don't want to see people like you, man, coming back and having to face the rest of your lives with that kind of shit. It's simple as that. I don't feel sorry for myself. I'm a lot smarter now than when I went. And I'm just telling you, if there's a choice to be made here.
Hal Ashby's film, Coming Home. Put Coming Home in the context of other films about Vietnam that you have seen. You know, this is a time that all of us are focusing on the 10th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. Think about the movies you've seen, Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, Uncommon Valor, Coming Home. There have been others. Give us a sense of them.
Well, I think, you know, for me, I mean, I didn't have any of those other films to refer to at the time. I mean, we all made our films about the same time. Coming Home was interesting, I mean, you know, as an approach to me because it really dealt with the after effects of the war. I think in context of you know, Apocalypse and Deer Hunter, I mean, I personally, I loved those films. I thought they were, you know, excellent, wonderful films. It was just, you know, it was a different segment of, although I must say Deer Hunter certainly, you know, did deal with the effects of Coming Home also. Yeah. It was in Coming Home, it was dealing, of course, with people who had been, you know, tremendously, had received horrendous injuries and so forth, physical injuries that were, that they had to deal with on top of, you know, of what went on with the, you know, with fighting that war.
Hal Ashby. I'm sorry. No, that's okay. I didn't want to interrupt you. Listen, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very, very much, Charlie. I appreciate your asking me to be here on the show.
Hal Ashby, filmmaker, director of a lot of films, including Coming Home. Nightwatch will continue. Stay with us.